should have said, my name is Danielle Gibbs, and I'm a product of Greenville County Schools because I know that there are plenty of trustees who would appreciate that. That's right, and I actually had one of our trustees as my English teacher at Riverside, which was a lot of fun. She is the reason that professors in college said, how do you know how to write something? Who taught you how to write? So anyway, I'm sorry, I had to brag on it for a bit. For a lot of students, so we're doing some great things, and sometimes I think, especially at the federal level, we can get discouraged easily over big challenges that we have as a country, but I do think the future for South Carolina is incredibly bright, and we have a lot of caring people who have helped me along the way, so I want to do the same. Senator Scott is inspiring to work for. He's a great leader and is really starting to make waves and build relationships in the Senate. It's been neat to see his approach on education in particular because he's very passionate about education. He tries to get in front of students at least once a month. It's kind of a goal of his because his life was transformed during his adolescence, and he wants to do his part to encourage students along the way. So eventually we'll hopefully show him Fisher Middle School. He hasn't been here yet, but he has seen a lot of the great schools and some of our more challenged schools. And that helps him when he goes to the Health Committee, which is where we just had reauthorization. I guess it was called the Every Child Achieves Act this year. Most of you all know it just as the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. So that passed unanimously out of committee. We are anticipating debate on the floor in June for that to move forward. I think there are a lot of the choice amendments being discussed, which I also have to brag because Greenville County is a nationally recognized leader on choice programs. So thank you, Bert, and trustees for your leadership and giving students options because we know they don't all learn the same way. So I think a lot of those amendments will deal with IDEA, portability, and Title I. But if you have deeper questions, then I can get more answers for you. I'd be happy to do that. Senator Scott and Senator Booker also teamed up. I see Ann here with our Workforce Investment Board over in Spartanburg, and part of that link between education and workforce development, and we keep beating that drum of workforce development, is something that the Senator also has given a lot of attention to. So that LEAP Act that he introduced deals with apprenticeships and wanting to increase exponentially the percentage of apprenticeships, and how do we do that? How do we incentivize employers to bring in apprentices and reduce the risk for them, but also just kind of empower them to start training up the next generation? Because I hate to say it, but I see my parents going off to Europe for the summer, having a good time. They're baby boomers, but they still want to work part of the year. They're not retiring as quickly, but there will be a waterfall coming, and we're going to need those workers. So we're looking at some other models in other countries and how we can increase apprenticeships, even as young as age 16 and then on up, depending on the track that students are on. In February, we held a school choice forum in DC. There was a lot of national attention. There are a couple of op-eds the Senator wrote there. So if you'd like, I can send you a copy of them. But it was a neat event and brought a lot of people from both sides of the aisle together, which we enjoyed. Unrelated to education, I just wanted to give you some timely updates as well. The TPA, Trade Promotion Authority, if you want to know more details about that, I can share them, but the Senator serves on the Finance Committee, so a lot of his time last week was spent working on Trade Promotion Authority and how we are going to move forward. And there's currency issues, and there's concerns for textiles, and there's concerns for automotive and all these different sectors to be addressed. But that's going to pave the way for some other larger trade agreements, the Pacific Partnership, which I think is about 12 countries in Asia, and then eventually things like TTIP, which is 28 countries in the European Union. So that's been going on right now. It should be on the floor late next week, since it's out of committee, but it does look good in the Senate. The House is, I think, a little bit of a different story, so y'all can talk to Josh if you want to know about the House side. The budget conference will be voted on next week as well, and I don't think we foresee any trouble there. This week, the Senate has also resumed consideration for the Iran nuclear agreement, so that's taking a lot of attention. We also have the Prime Minister of Japan speaking to a joint session of Congress this week, and then Senator Scott this week also joined Senator Shaheen and introduced the Protecting Affordable Coverage for Employees, the PACE Act. There have been a lot of concerns over transparency for these healthcare premiums for small businesses. You've seen these incredible escalations in the past couple of years, so that act has been introduced to deal with those concerns. No movement on highway authorization yet. We'll probably have a short-term extension, but if you're worried about roads, the federal government's probably going to kick the can down the road. So, anyway, any questions I can answer for you? Very bluntly, obviously.
Is the infrastructure bank, is that going to be a dead thing? Or?
The National Infrastructure Bank, I don't think it has much traction right now. South Carolina's is a national model. I think a lot of other states have looked at the way that we have bonded out projects like the Ravenel Bridge, but I'm hoping we get some other big upstate projects in the pipeline there too. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you, everybody. My name is Dean Hybl. I'm the Executive Director of 10 at the Top, and we are one of the partners for these sessions. As Trish said, started in 2010, the idea of bringing together our city, county, and state elected leaders, both in terms of city and county governments, but also schools, water, other folks, along with business leaders across the upstate to talk about issues that impact how we're growing as a community on a regular basis. And as Trish said, this is the 12th time we've gotten together. The first time we've gotten together in a school setting, so this is very exciting, and we appreciate, I want to especially thank Greenville County for bending over backwards and helping us with this. If you didn't notice, they also have students and school going on, but they were very helpful in getting us in today. So thank you to all of you for extending great hospitality to us here, and we really appreciate it. This is a wonderful place, and they're going to do a tour afterwards for anyone who wants to see the school. So I encourage you, if you can, stay for a little while. We'll have a reception, but also to check out the school. I think it'll be great. As I said, these sessions started in 2010, and we've had discussions on workforce, on transportation. Last month, some of you were at BMW's entry when we talked about some of the different bills in the state legislature as it relates to that. Unfortunately, it is not moving as fast as we were kind of promised by those who were there at that session, but it is, the House has done some work on it. There's some work to be done in the Senate here in South Carolina, as those of you who follow that know. We've had discussions on many other topics, water and on economic development and many other things, but we have not had one specifically around education. And part of that was intentional. We were kind of waiting, many of you have been to these sessions, school folks as well as others, and we were kind of trying to look and identify what that topic was as it relates to public schools and to education. And last fall, Chuck Saylors with Greenville County school trustees came to me and said, I think it's time we really need to do something more in terms of engaging our other elected officials around the importance and really what it means to be a public school system here in the upstate in South Carolina. We have 23 school districts here in our region. And so we started talking about it, and it led to, and many of you educators, of course, were there, a session we had at USC Upstate back in February where we had almost 100 school trustees and superintendents talking about the issues that are impacting them in education. It was a wonderful session, and the notes of those are in, and Burke will talk more about that in the panel discussion, but they're in your packet of what came from that. And the goal was to then kind of translate some of that information and some of the discussion from that to the session today, engaging other elected officials and business leaders. So that's what we hope to do for the next hour, a little over hour and 15 minutes or so with a couple of presentations and some discussions. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck Saylors, who has been gracious through the company he works for, MBCon, is one of our sponsors, but also most specifically as one of the catalysts of making sure that we are engaging our school systems as part of our elected bodies here in the Upstate. So I'm going to turn it over to Chuck, and thank you very much for all of you.
Welcome to Fisher Middle School, as you heard before, and on behalf of our chairman, Lisa Wells, and the administration, and my fellow board members on the board, we're glad to have you with us today. We hope that you'll see a lot of exciting things while you're here on this property. And to kind of add to what Dean's already teed up, this conversation started a little over a year ago when we were at the Zentrum at an elected officials meeting, and someone in the audience asked a question about graduation rates. And it was an elected official from a different division of government who readily admitted they did not understand school operations, but also used a statistic that was totally incorrect. Now, during the following discussion generated the correct information. That's when Dean and I had a conversation about, okay, now's the time for us to start this conversation among the 10 counties in the Upstate, because we've got a lot of collective clout, if you will, within our midst. For example, I'll use Greenville County as this example, but I would imagine it works the same across any county line in the 10 counties that we represent. The school district's budget in Greenville County this year is a little over $504 million. Now my time's up. Thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, we do have a quorum of our board here today, and for those of you that have been following the news, we're not going to vote to sell property today. We're okay. Nevertheless, you take Greenville County's budget and the municipalities within the county of Greenville, throw them in the same pot, and we still have a budget total of about 2 to 1 is at the last information we have. School districts are predominantly the largest employer, or one of the largest employers within their particular area. But a lot of folks don't understand that. As Dean mentioned earlier, in the 10 counties in the upstate of South Carolina, there are 23 school districts. Of those 23 school districts, there are 218,000 students. Okay? So let me give you some information that we collected. Of those school districts, 86% received an absolute rating of good or excellent in the last state report card. 74% of those districts received a growth rating of good or excellent in the last state report card. The average pupil spending for these 23 districts is $8,764, which is based on the latest insight information, which is compiled by the state. This equates to $48 a day per student based on a 180-day school schedule, or $7.38 an hour for a 6.5-hour day. Now, according to care.com, the going rate for babysitters in Greenville, South Carolina is $13 an hour. There's value to what's produced in our school systems. Each year of the 23 districts in 10 at the top, the employees that are receiving a salary, not including fringe benefits, is a little over $1.1 billion. That's money into the local economy. Again, we are the largest employers collectively in the upstate. Scholarships, and I can speak only for Greenville County, but I would say that every superintendent or trustee in this room can probably echo the same thing. But the scholarships in Greenville County this past year totaled a little over $113 million. There's a lot of success stories that our collective districts are experiencing. And what we want to do in today's venue and subsequently is spend time letting everyone in this room understand the good that goes on in a school system, the challenges that these school systems face, and the opportunities that we have come up with to address those challenges. How many times have we as superintendents or school board trustees pulled a rabbit out of the hat when it comes to the budget? Those are the kind of success stories that we want to show as an example today and in the future. So our communities and our other elected officials can, when they're stopped in the grocery store, and I'm sure Rick Danner can attest to this, the mayor stopped in the grocery store over in Greer, and someone says, I heard this about Greer High School, and that's happened before. And here is the mayor caught having to ask a question that he needs the information on. So we want to supply all of you with the information so you'll have a successful conversation with those that you represent. So at this time, I'm going to ask our superintendent, Burke Royster, to come forward. Burke is going to be moderating the panel of school board members and superintendents to discuss exactly what we've teed up today.